Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. I'm Jinesh Warrior. I'm one of the technology evangelists at AWS and also focus on mobile and IoT. So very, very thrilled to be here today. And today's this session is around how you build and scale your mobile applications using AWS Mobile Services. Before I get started, just a quick show of hands. How many people are familiar with AWS Mobile Services? Okay, few, cool, awesome. So this is a great opportunity, as well as I'm truly humbled and privileged to be here to give you a kind of a sneak preview of what you heard at the keynote today about Lambda, as well as how you could use all the different mobile services of AWS to really power and scale your mobile applications going forward. In today's world, most modern mobile applications are powered by the cloud. When you have more than one device being used by a person, or as soon as you have multiple devices using your app, cloud becomes the obvious choice for doing stuff and building stuff as well as storing stuff. And so mobile at AWS is really very important, and I'm going to focus today on different services that we power. So if you're building a mobile app today, and you're powering with the cloud in mind, what are some of the basic things that you have to do? These are just simple and kind of obvious things that you have to do. For example, if you have users in your mobile app, you want to authorize users, you want to authenticate users, and you want to manage users in a more effective way. You want every app today has more than one form factor or more than one device or app. So you need a way to really synchronize data across multiple different applications, as well as you want to synchronize your data across devices and operating systems, because that's a given. If I am using my Android phone now and I'm using my iPad of the same app, I want to make sure that my user experience is intact. I want to synchronize that data in a more effective way. So that's a given. Now, once you have lots of users and you want to you're kind of understanding your user behavior, you want to understand how your users are performing, how your users are using your app. What are the how you can retain more users? If you're running a big campaign, how do you know that campaign is really, really effective? How do you analyze your user behavior, your metrics about your app? Which parts of the app are being used and which are not being used today? And so it becomes extremely important, and analytics is obviously some of the mobile applications today obviously use. How many people are mobile app developers? Great, a lot of them. So this is something totally very interesting that once you build your app, you want to understand your users and so forth. You also want to kind of have a complete backend for mobile. This backend, you want to run your own custom business logic, whether it's pre-processing your data or it's validating your data and then persisting it in a database, or you're running some sort of a custom logic where you are you're transcoding a video, or to creating a thumbnail, or doing basically any custom logic. You want to do it in a way that it's extremely scalable right from the get-go, right from the start itself. Likewise, there are all these other things too. If you are building a media sharing app, you want to build and share you want to store media, you want to deliver media, if you're doing anything on the media side as well. You want to bring the users back to your app when they're not using your app, so that you can increase your revenue, you can increase your usage, and you want to send push notifications overall. You want to get real-time stats. It's so important about how your users are are using your application in real time, so you can actually give them more benefit. But what turns out that these are all really boring things. These are table stakes. These are things that really don't add value to your app. These are things that are undifferentiated heavy lifting that you are doing, right? And that's where AWS really comes in, and AWS Mobile Services comes in. And so with AWS Mobile Services, it's a complete suite of AWS services that focuses primarily on mobile apps. And these are services optimized for mobile, cross-platform from get-go. So you can use, whether you're running Android, iOS, or any other operating system, you should be able to use the services in a more effective way. At the same time, we offer an ability through the mobile optimized connectors. These are part of the entire mobile SDK that leverages the entire other suite of AWS services like S3, EC2, S3, Dynamodb, SQS, and so forth. Last but not least, you want to also build backends, right? So these services really help you a complete platform and a very easy to use mobile SDKs to power and make it easy for your applications. So I'm going to go through all of these services now and kind of give you a quick overview, as well as show you a quick demo that I built, kind of walking you through how you can build and kind of get started, as well as scale your applications to when you reach the masses. One of the most important thing I want to highlight here is all these services are now pay-as-you-go. Now they are having all the inherent capability, the default things that come with AWS Cloud. They are cross-platform. They're not tied to any particular platform. You can leverage. You can build multiple. You can leverage different SDKs, and I'm going to talk about that too to power these. At the same time, they are either inherently scalable or they're extremely easy to scale. And that's my key takeaway from today's talk as well, is that all these services they scale without you having to manage any server, without you have to manage or operate or scale or anything. These are services that inherently scale, that you never have to worry about scalability. So when you are having 0 users or you're having 10 million users, they basically work just out of the box. So all these table stakes basically these are boring things that you have to do in order to build any app. These are available with just few lines of code. With just one line of code, basically you can get each of this synchronization of data if that is something that is interesting to you. So the services that I talked about, all these services are going to be are basically addressing the task that you have to do to build a great mobile app. So let's get started on some of these things, and I'm going to show you a cool game that I built called the snake game. Snake eats the apple, snake gets longer as it eats the apple, and you get more and more levels up on the game itself. So, and I'm going to show you some of the examples as well of how you do this in an environment like Eclipse and an Android environment itself. How many people are Android developers? Okay, few. That's good. So this is something, and this can absolutely work in an iOS setup as well, and with Xcode. So I have no concerns around that as well. So the first and foremost, you want to have a really good, highly scalable, what I call serverless backend for your mobile application, and that's what today's announcement, as you know, AWS Lambda is a powerful way to run your any code that you want, and you build it in a complete stateless environment, as well as scale it in a way that you not have to worry about any scalable any server management or server operation and so forth. AWS Lambda is an event-driven compute service that basically can run any code that you like. We start with JavaScript. Java is coming soon, and other languages also support. The zero administration part is the key. You don't have to manage load balancing, patching, management, or even manage instance types or instance sizes or in any environment. You run basic, simple functions in the cloud that powers your mobile app. And it is a complete new way to run building or having a serverless backend overall. It auto scales for you when you are managing zero. You have zero users or few users, and you want to scale your users to massive amount. When you grow, it scales with you, and you're only paying for the compute that actually is for that function that you are running. It's a great way to define and also kind of leverage some of the stateless aspects of any computing environment. It's not just obviously tied to mobile. You can run anything on it, and you can run any functions. Whether you are running a transcoding cluster, or you are running a basic data indexing and synchronization, you can run anything. It's not just tied for mobile. But mobile is one of the happy path use cases, and it's really easy for you to do this and set up, and you'll see that today. You can run backend services. You can run any of the IoT side as well. You can run stream processing. You do on-the-fly analytics. Basically, it's your function that scales for different levels overall. So I'll give you an example of a company called, I'm not sure why this is blipping. Can somebody fix this? Blipping? But anyway, so this is a customer that I really like to talk about. Comply has an application called Command Post, which basically does social media aggregation. Prior to Lambda, they used to run several different Node.js applications on different EC2 instances, a complete fleet of EC2 instances, several different functions that are doing small little tasks for managing of the infrastructure, getting the getting the application, or aggregating social media from different third-party social media sites, focusing on different, and managing and analyzing and doing trend analysis for their app. With Lambda, they basically replaced all these Node.js applications and with just simple functions. So they're not only able to reduce the cost, obviously, of their entire infrastructure, but at the same time, they're able to increase the load on their data ingestion side that is coming, all these feeds coming in to the social media aggregation. They can simply dial up and say, I want to do more of those. I want to do time series. I want to basically get lots of data without me having to worry about scaling the servers or doing load balancing or website or any patching or anything of that sort. Now it is basically handled all by Lambda. So you can see a simple, you can reduce your workload, reduce your cost, increase your workload, as well as focus on scalability without having to worry about managing servers. So how does Lambda work? And I'm going to show you that too in a few minutes. But basically, Lambda, until now, Lambda was a way to trigger. A function can be triggered with any sort of an event that is happening. So any request or any response, any request-response mechanism can now take advantage of Lambda. Previously, it used to have, you store an image on S3, or you put an object in DynamoDB, or you put an object, or you put something in your Kinesis stream. It triggers the Lambda function. Now, with today's release, you will be able to invoke synchronously and function right from your mobile app. So within the mobile SDK, you have the ability to call a Lambda function and then let it scale as it will scale for others. So it's very powerful. And it maps to your local applications, local application function itself. So you define a function within your mobile app. Let's say call it local function, and just create an interface and map it, saying that this is going to be my cloud function, and you define that in the cloud. You have an ability to call that directly from the mobile app, whether it's Android, iOS, and so forth. Now the power of that is awesome, because you can now basically have all the intelligence in the cloud, and manage all the intelligence also in the cloud without having to worry about of the fragmented world of mobile or devices that's out there. So you can put app intelligence in the cloud while keeping your app only doing the more important things, that is like user experience and UI and other things. We integrated with the mobile SDK, as this was mentioning, and also added lots of new features on today's release that is now available to all, so you can go ahead and now start playing with it today. We added lots of other things like deliverability, like the CloudTrail integration, lots of enhanced metrics. You define a simple function, you define how many MBs of data that it is going to use, and for that we will manage the CPU, we'll manage the storage, and we'll manage the isolation, and we'll give you the response that basically you need. So what this brings and what this enables is an entirely new set of new ideas and new use cases that we have not talked about. Because you can now invoke a Lambda function right from your mobile SDK, you don't need any servers to manage. You can basically have anything trigger based on your function. So you can say, I want to map all my local functions or a few of my local functions to Lambda functions, and I'm going to manage all that in the cloud. Then I want to leverage my complete sync. I want to take my. I didn't talk about Cognito yet, but when we talk about Cognito, you will see that you will be able to synchronize data and actually change that data set within the Lambda function as well. At the same time, you can change things and do pre-processing and pre-validation or post-processing of your data that is coming into the cloud. You do some processing in Lambda and then store it. Or after you store it, you do some processing, and then again you can do any sorts of process, post-validation processing. At the same time, we launched SNS integration. So based on SNS, you can trigger a Lambda function. You can define you want to personalize your notification, for example, and you can send a notification on HTTP, trigger a Lambda function, provide more value on the Lambda function by, let's say, give it to your friends, for example, and you can resend it to a push notification again and create a targeted push notification with complete personalized features back to your user. So you can increase your user experience, again, not having to worry about scalability or so forth, because it handles it for you. So let's just see a kind of a cool way of how we can define this to get in the Eclipse mode. So this is a game that I've written in a few lines. All of this is available on GitHub, so you can take advantage of it, play with it. This game uses all the different services that I just talked about. It uses Cognito. It uses for game state synchronization, and I'll talk about that. Let me just first show you the game, because that's the most fun part. So this is a simple game that most of you have already used earlier. It's basically snake eating the apple. Apple gets a little bit longer. The snake gets a little longer and longer. And the first thing that it basically allows you to do is to play the game. So obviously, I can go right into the game. I can see the game and play the game itself. So I'll talk about the game later, but let's just kind of go into a little bit more details of the game itself. So on the left side, you see the navigator where it shows all the different functions, and this is basically a simple wrapper to using all the different services. It uses Cognito, Dynamodb, Kinesis, S3, and so forth. As the game progresses, and the snake gate gets longer and longer, the levels are changed. And as the levels, as I progress during the game, levels increase. And I can sync my game states using Cognito. But at the same time, I also have Lambda. So I'm going to just show you a simple hello world style Lambda function. So what you have to do within a Lambda function is first define a simple invoker factory, initialize the invoker factory. What this does is, this initializes the main Lambda files, and then you define what I call the Lambda interface. Within the Lambda function interface, you define all the function interface that you would want to have. In this case, you say, okay, at Lambda function, my cloud function is going to be called as cloud function. I just named it Cloud function, but you can call it anything you like. And my actual local function is going to be the local function itself that I have it in my game. Now, what this does is basically just going to show me hello from Lambda or something like that. So this is what I did, and I bind this interface, and I can write all the functions in this one, and I bind this interface to the factory. Now, when the game starts, immediately after initializing my invoker factory, I'm just going to call this with a symbol string called hello from. Now, I'm going to go and define this function in the cloud to actually, when I call the local function, immediately call the function in the cloud. So I'm going to go to my console, and basically select the service. And you can see I've defined a simple cloud function. You can do so by just creating the create function and editing it and testing it. So I just created this cloud function, and then I'm going to go and show you what the code actually looks like in the cloud. And you can see within the Lambda function, it's just all Node.js. You can run Java as well, it's coming soon. So it will load the event, it will take the hello world from this event, and then just let's say I'll type this and say SF Summit. And I'm going to save and invoke. That's it. Now when I'm going to watch out for the simple, so now I need to actually define in my Eclipse code where I'm actually going to, what this function actually does, right? So in this case, the simple asynchronous task, now everything within, when you're using a network service, you have to wrap that in Android, wrap that into an asynchronous task, otherwise it will give you an exception of network on main thread. So you're just wrapping this under an asynchronous task, and then what this is going to do is just going to show me a toast, a small little message on the bottom saying that what is the actual message, right? So hello from is coming from the local function, and Lambda SF Summit is coming from the cloud. And you basically can merge and do whatever you like in this case. This is, of course, a hello world example. So what I will do is, and I will just kill this, start. Start the game. And you can see below, hello from Lambda SF Summit, right? And I can change this, and I can actually do hello from Lambda Summit. Whoa, okay. And save and invoke. When I, again, start the game again, watch out the bottom, say, whoa, right? So you see the idea behind that you have a power of a complete backend without any servers to manage, all that directly getting invoked from the Lambda function in the cloud. This is pretty powerful. So what you just saw, just to kind of summarize, is that you are you're doing basically just three things. When you integrate Lambda and a complete backend to your mobile app, you're invoking, you're defining your cloud function in the cloud, and then you're calling that from that cloud function, as easy as it can get. Right? So it's very, very powerful, and it's very, very effective. Now, I talked about scalability is very, very important, right? And not having to worry about managing those servers is also is a good thing, because you don't have to worry about operations and all the different things that comes with it, right? But velocity of scale is also extremely important. How fast you can scale without having to worry about that. And that's where all these services come into place. And I'll talk about SNS as a simple example. Amazon SNS is a cross-platform push intermediary service. It gives you a single endpoint that you can work across, whether it's Apple APNS or Google GCM or even Baidu Cloud Push notifications. And I'm not sure why is this happening. It's the cable, I'm sure. And so basically, with a single endpoint, you don't have, from a developer, this is awesome because I don't have to worry about learning all the different APNS and other different documentation on how to use it. It does all the normal token registration for you. It handles the tokens and deletes the token if the user has uninstalled the app, and all the cool things that are sort of included in the power of SNS itself. So you can use SNS in a more effective way, leveraging all the different services, all the different notifications side. So your notifications, that actually brings the user back to your app when they're not using the app, also increases and improves the user experience overall. We introduced just recently 2 main features, which was one of the top features requests from SNS. The first one was focused on how getting delivery metrics directly in CloudWatch. So you can basically say, now I want to know whether this message was really delivered, and whether it was delivered, what level, how, when, and so forth. You can see all those metrics within CloudWatch, our monitoring tool. So you can see and more define that, understand whether the notifications are working and so forth. At the same time, we also introduced integration with Lambda, which basically gives you a power of the notification, then run a complete Lambda function, and then back to the notification to create more personalized notification or whatever manipulation you would like to do on the payload itself. So that's one. So as I was talking about, scaling and serverless scaling is so important, but velocity of scale is also very important, and that's where thank you very much. Hopefully it works. Thank you. So scalability is important. Velocity of scale is also important, and that's what I'd like to talk about. One of the customer case studies here, Path. How many people know about Path? Lots. Okay, Path is one of the most heavily used social networking app, especially in here at Silicon Valley, and they have lots of users focusing on with different types of apps. Maybe it's just me. Okay. So they run a complete push notifications gateway of their own, and they're managing that all in EC2 instances with load balancing, and then focusing on different types of EC2 instances. They're managing it, and they're kind of converting that and managing all the tokens, managing the database, all that stuff they had to do. But today, last April actually, they moved to SNS, and they didn't tell us they're moving to SNS. And they were able to scale from 0 to 500 million push notifications in the matter of 3 days. So velocity of scale is very, very important, that you can scale. Yes, that's true, but you can scale quickly so that you never lose your customer. And that's the power of all the AWS Mobile Services. This is just an example. And that's my first takeaway, is that serverless scaling is very important, but at the same time, scaling automatically, faster scale is very, very important as well. So now let's talk about, we talked about scalability and talk about serverless aspects. Let's see how you can even further enhance your application by kind of managing all these with different services. Amazon Cognito has 2 parts. It's a powerful data synchronization service, at the same time an identity broker service. You never have to embed AWS credentials into your app, because any hacker can kind of right-click the APK file and get access to your credentials and log into the cloud on behalf of you. What Cognito does, it solves that. It improves, it enhances the security of your application, because it creates temporary credentials that's valid for only for one hour, and it creates a unique ID for your app, for your user every time you log in. Whether you're using Facebook, Google, or Amazon, or any OpenID Connect provider, Facebook creates a unique ID across your app. And it also has SDKs, which we already have for Android, iOS, Unity, Xamarin, and JavaScript, you can create, sort of use Cognito's user ID as sort of a cookie between your web and the mobile world as well. So it gives you the enormous power of identity and then managing that identity across this single user ID that you have created. And that's the power that you can manage these identity providers and not have to manage, manage identity provider, manage the users instead, right? And the third part, which is like is number one over here, is the most important one. As users wants to create applications, and their users have more than more devices to interact with that application, you want to create a better experience. For example, you play a movie on Netflix on your iPhone, and then you want to resume it from the same spot in your iPad, right? Or anything that you want to do. Or you are playing a game, and you reached a certain level, and you want to play the game right from that level. So there is different levels that you want to not only synchronize user profiles, but also synchronize game states, or you want to synchronize any data that you want across these devices. And Cognito does this with just one line of code, dataset.synchronize. And that gives you the enormous power that you don't have to worry about. All these management is handled by Cognito. It does the conflict resolution for you. And if you don't like that conflict resolution methodology, you can override that conflict resolution to way that you like. So it gives you flexibility as well. As well as you may manage unique users versus different identity providers. And implement the security best practices that are focused, even if your app is compromised or your user ID is compromised, you have full flexibility to change the policies and use that as well. So how does it work? It uses the same Google app and Facebook app and others that you are having. You use your username and password, and it will create an OpenID. They will give you the OpenID Connect token to Cognito. Cognito will give you back the temporary credentials to access basically any service that you have. And so Cognito now becomes the gateway to AWS on accessing all the different services that you want. For example, S3. You want to share media and upload your photo or video directly from your device without having a server in the backend. It directly goes and burns S3 servers rather than your application servers. So it's very powerful. Now, lots of customers came back to us saying that, hey, I don't use Facebook, Google, or Amazon as my login provider. I want my own username and password. So Cognito works with that as well. So you have your own user authentication, either running on AWS or not. Now, you authenticate and you give implicit permission, and then get a token directly from Cognito that's valid only for that session. And then also, Cognito will send you a unique ID as well as the temporary credentials to access any service. So that is enormously powerful. You can bring in any OpenID Connect token provider, and you can manage that as well. So this is what is really, really cool. So let me kind of show you how quickly and easily you can kind of get started using using the console. So now I'm going to switch back to Cognito. So in Cognito, you can basically create a Cognito identity pool. In this, I will create a Cognito identity pool. And one of the cool things about Cognito is that because it is creating a unique identifier, you don't have to log in with a provider. In this case, what we call as unauthenticated identities. You can log in and leverage all of our AWS services with an unauthenticated ID. So in this case, it's not authenticated by a public login provider, but it's still login provider as well. So in my game, if you notice, there was a just play, and it's using all the different services. So I can zip right through my game without having a roadblock of logging into my game or logging into my app. I can just simply leverage the cloud services securely from within the game, from any app. So I can define I'll just enable this pool. What we create is an identity pool. It's a top-level construct where all the identities are part of the same pool. And then you can put your Amazon app ID, Facebook app ID, or Google client ID, wherever you have built your app and which identity provider you would like to choose, or you choose your own OpenID Connect providers, or you have your own username or password that you would like to create. And the key to this is the IAM role. As you create your identity pool, you define which services this particular user has access to and to what level. This user has only access to DynamoDB for this particular table and only write access, not delete access. And you can define all of that in this IAM policy. By default, we give access to Cognito Sync store, as well as we give access to the put items, put events in the mobile analytics. But you can change this to basically use any AWS service overall. And that's it. You create your identity pool, and then you integrate that into your app itself. So in this case, I created and I integrated that in my app, and see how it looks. It basically is I initialize my Cognito caching credentials provider. I use my pool ID that I created using my console. I created the roles and their ARNs all in this, and then I just simply pass that in as my part overall in my application. And then I initialize my Cognito Sync Manager as well as my Cognito client. And all I have to do is, as you can see, I have Facebook, I have Google, and all these are integrated in it. Now I can log in through Facebook. It creates a unique identifier, and on the server side as well as on the client side, and then manages that for that. And you can associate different data sets to that particular user ID that you have created, that unique ID that is automatically created. So now let's have fun. Let's just use Cognito as well as Cognito Sync to do this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to log in. And I'm going to play the game on stage, which is so much fun. Ooh, oops, sorry, I typed it wrong. Yeah, it's going to authorize the game. It's creating a unique identifier for me right now, and it's syncing and doing all the things. As you can see, this is a game, and I'm going to play the game. So I get new game. I have swipe listeners. The apples appear in a Fibonacci sequence as the level improves. So you can see I'm now in level 2, Fibonacci sequence level 1. I'm going to play the game. It's always fun to play. And you can see the sound effects too. Can you? Yes. And now my favorite part, let me reach the level 3. I've completed level 3. That's the fun part. So that basically shows that what happened was I reached a particular level, and it automatically synchronized the level state. Now, to simulate that it is basically a new device and a new app, I'm just going to go back, and if the demo gods work with me, I'm going to kill all the data that's there on this app. That means it's a brand new app, just install, everything is there. But because I have synchronized on the console, so it created a unique ID, and it created a unique ID on the server side, and associated that unique ID to my Facebook login provider, I'm able to actually now reach that level game as well. So if I log in back, so obviously it now asks me for again to log in, and I reach level 3, and you can see the Lambda function is also still running. And it synchronized the game. And when I start the game, for some reason it didn't synchronize. But basically you get the idea that it's going to take the levels that you have provided in the synchronized aspect and run the game and kind of, oh, sorry, I didn't, my bad. I didn't hit synchronize to kind of do manual synchronization for now. I had disabled the automatic synchronization. So in this case, I synchronize, and I hit the synchronize button, and then it will to just show that it is synchronizing. And but you can do that in the background, or you can run automatically overall as well. But basically, you get the idea that it synchronizes your game level, your game state, or your user profile, or your preferences, or anything that you like in a simple data set. And it creates that value. So let's see how all of this works in kind of in a PowerPoint way. So as I mentioned about the identity broker, now you created an identity pool. It created two authenticated and unauthenticated IDs, and you create these IAM roles. And then in your access policy, you provide all these in it. So you say, I want only get access, I want put access for this particular role, and so forth. And then on the synchronization part, it was so easy that basically in my code, actually I didn't show you the code itself. In my code, all I have is this one line of code, dataset.synchronize. What it did was, in my game, I have a level and a state, or a score, sorry. Level and the score, both are basically stored as a part of name-value pairs within the data set in the cloud. So all I have to worry about is that when I call dataset.synchronize, it will work with the local cache all the time, first of all. It will work with the SQLite database that's stored, and that's all managed as a part of the SDK itself. So you don't have to worry about all of that. It will synchronize always with the cache, a local cache, and then whenever the connection is available, it will synchronize with the cloud as well. So you can synchronize back and forth across different devices around that. So going back, you can see, your app preferences, your cross-device sync, at the same time, it works with offline cache as well, because it's always connecting to the local cache, and you don't need any backend whatsoever. Everything is on the server side. You just have to run one line of code overall. So syncing user profiles, syncing across devices or game states is just basically turned down to one line of code. Now, the power of this, obviously, is that there are no servers, but also it manages a lot of things like conflict resolution. When you have two devices writing to the same data store, there is a chance that there will be conflict resolution required. So in this case, I have selected the default, which is last write wins. But you can override this entire thing with a simple function override, and then define that, no, not last write wins, the first one wins, or whatever. So a lot of this, we have seen amazing traction leveraging this, especially in the gaming side, where they are synchronizing game states with just few lines of code, not have to worry about scalability. And Concrete Games has basically integrated Cognito in all their games as a platform to focus on the challenge. And basically the challenge was to make it easier, scalable, and more effective for them. The Cognito Sync Store is very, very simple to understand. Right? It has, on the top of the AWS account, I created an identity pool, which I showed you on the console. Based on that, you create, each identity pool has more than one identities or your app. Each identity has a data set, which is your container where you store your name value pairs. And that's it. And you can share the data set per grouping. Each data set can be up to 1 MB, and you can store either a complete blob of JSON, or you can store name value pairs and synchronize only that. So it gives you that power to manage that effectively in a nice way. So I just showed you the demo of the synchronization. But to kind of wrap up on this Cognito, you do basically three things. Very simple to understand. Your Cognito caching provider, you initialize that using the console, and you say, I want to create and put this key value pair. In this case, I have I'm storing a game level and the game score, which is getting synchronized. And then that's it. You create your game, your data set does synchronize. As easy. Same with the iOS, whether it's Android or iOS, it's very, very simple to understand. So now that you understood scalability, serverless scale, having velocity of scale, as well as Cognito, there is no servers required. You want to know about your users as well, your user behavior, or analyze your user behavior. And that's where mobile analytics comes into place. It's a fast, scalable, and your results are available within 60 minutes or less. So you can get that reports analyzed, with, again, only one line of code that you have to add that will take all the session data or the device data and leverage that and render all that into a beautiful graph, which I'll show you. But idea being that is that it's scalable, as well as you own the data, just like any AWS service. You have the data at your disposal, and you can export it wherever you like, either it's S3 or you want to manage in a very large data warehouse like Redshift, and I'm going to show you that too. So how does it work? Now, in this case, you log into the console. You create an account, log into the console, and then you can get all these graphs, which I'll show you later. But the main aspect is that all these key business metrics are automatically analyzed, rendered, ready to go cross-platform for you on that dashboard itself. The second thing is that it also does retention analysis. So you can say, if I'm running a very big campaign and I want to see how my users are performing, you can see that in that view itself. So for this example, you can see for the retention, there were new users that signed up after this campaign that I ran, and then day one retention, 131 users came back for this out of this 1,000 users, and so forth. And you can see 7-day retention periods and so forth. Likewise, within the UI, you are able to see and manage custom metrics. Now, this opens up mobile analytics to basically anything from custom metrics. What custom metrics allow you to do is that you define, whatever way, whether it's your game that you're trying to analyze our users, or whether it's the likes or the shares, or if you're an e-commerce application, you want to track revenue, or you want to do anything. So these are basic custom metrics and attributes that you can define for your application itself, and then also render that effectively. So in my game, I was analyzing not only custom metrics of the level that people are reaching at, because I want to know how many people are reaching a maximum level. Should I decrease the difficulty of my game, or increase my difficulty of my game and increase my revenue, and so forth? So I can do all that basically on that in itself. So let's just see quickly. You know what? I'll show you that later as it's working on. It's fine, yeah. So the demo basically walks through the whole console experience, and I'll show you in a few minutes. But recently we launched a very important feature based on feedback from our customers, that they are getting all this data. All these data is available: session data, user data, app data, to the application in the cloud. How can you take that data and even do more further analysis on that? So we leveraged a complete managed pipeline for these mobile analytics. So with just one click on the console, you say, I want to export all my mobile analytics data to S3. And then later, kind of take this into the next level, where we manage where your data is stored in what buckets, and then we manage the complete pipeline to instantiate your Redshift cluster. So how many people know about Redshift? Okay, quite a few. So Redshift is a powerful data warehousing system and again scalable. So all the data is available, and all the subsequent incremental data is also available. So as you start your Redshift cluster, the level of data that is coming in is going to increase, and you're sending this data continuously to S3, and then Redshift is pulling that data off S3, all completely managed. So what this allows you to do is that you can take basically any BI tool, whether it's Tableau or chart.io or your own homegrown that is very familiar with the SQL way of doing it. You can take advantage of that and analyze your data, and also mash up different types of data to really do the deep dive analysis for your data scientist. So this gives you the power. If I so this is kind of the console, just as a way to kind of show you. With one click on my snake game, I was able to create a bucket, and I was able to create a simple part. Once you have the data in S3, you can do any sort of analysis on that. You can say, I want to put it on Redshift, or I want to do batch processing on Hadoop, or I want to put it in a cold storage on Glacier with a simple policy. But you can also mash up different data sets and bring that back into the Redshift data warehouse, and then use any tool that you like to kind of go back. So an example, one of the powerful football apps, in second largest football app, they have, I think, more than 1.6 billion events going into AWS. You have 1.5 million active users using the app, and then it's the real kind of the soccer or football, whatever we want to call, where they use this for their voting of your application itself. Very, very powerful app. And they gave us their 3 terabytes of data, and they're using this data along with Tableau to basically analyze different types of deep analysis based on that data. This is one view of Tableau based on that data that they have collected. So World Cup is the most interesting in which, so they're doing it slicing and dicing with geolocation. Their per user capita, like which country is highest among users per capita. They were analyzing votes that are coming into the system, so custom metrics, and say what are the votes that are coming in from which level, which game, what campaign, and so forth. So they can do that as well. Device fragmentation, and this is the best part. You can see a complete visualized view, really nice view of how the world is fragmented in the world of Android and iOS, and which apps are more popular, which platform is more popular for your app. So all of that was available just because you had an ability to get the data that you want in another AWS service and analyze that data overall. So with just, again, few lines of code and clicks that you were able to do. So one of the most important aspects, or my second key takeaway of this talk, is that all these services are discrete. You can use the flexibility of the services that you like, and you don't have to use all these services in the platform. But at the same time, these are services very designed to work better together. So in this case, as I talked about gateway to AWS, you can securely access any AWS service. You can do analytics with Redshift. With Lambda, for example, you can trigger anything based on Dynamodb, and Dynamodb sends you a trigger message, and it automatically triggers a Lambda function, so you can process that table data and shove it back to Dynamodb or something else. You can do it with S3. If you want to upload an image, create a thumbnail and put the thumbnail back into the ground. And today we are launching another set of entire features which are more powerful. For example, you can update your push notifications. You can trigger based on synchronization events itself. So if something happened on the Cognito side and you want to merge data sets or something, you would be able to, again, call Lambda function. So Lambda becomes the glue of any request response paradigm that you want to use. So these services are all better together, and they can run in a very easy way to kind of take advantage of the massive scale of AWS and all its AWS services overall. So this is my second takeaway, is that you can flexible and you're they're better together overall. I'm not sure why it's happening, but that's fine. Don't worry about it. Yeah. Thank you, though. So last but not the least, it's more powerful one of the most important use cases today is that you have an ability to leverage the AWS Mobile SDK to leverage an Amazon S3 directly. And so again, the AWS Mobile SDK focuses, so it's already offered in multiple different development platforms, but it also makes it very easy for using it from within the mobile app itself. So if I'm storing a mobile device, storing an app or a thumbnail or a video or any media or any file that I would like to store, it does so using the transfer manager functionality within the mobile SDK. And this basically does all the things that you would want to work with a distributed service, like multi-part upload, multi-part download, automatic retries if there is intermittent connection. It works with the local cache. It's optimized to run on that particular platform itself. And all at the same time, you can also use Kinesis, which is our real-time ingestion service for all your clickstream logs. So in my game, which I'll show you quickly now, all these services are basically being used, but for the S3 side, as I kind of, let's say this time I will log out, or I'll just kill it, and then I log out, and for the sake of it, I'll log in with Amazon. Again, it's using the same unique ID, so I can use multiple login providers. If I associate that in my one app for one time, it links that one time, and then later on, when you pick up from any device and you log in from any login provider, you would be able to you'll be able to get the same data set, the same user preferences that you have defined earlier. So this time what I did was I wanted to download the game assets dynamically. Instead of like logging in, I uploaded a zip file to S3, and then it will unpack and all the assets that you saw earlier, the apple, the snake, the background, everything else. And I wanted to create a complete new game for my users. And this is very common in a gaming environment where you want to download these game assets when you're using any game overall. So in this case, it will download the game assets, it will unpack it. I purposely put some delay so I can talk between I'm doing this. So what it does, it downloads using S3, doing a transfer manager. It will manage the connections, it will manage the caching aspects, and it'll unpack all the zip file, put that in these zip files. And I can also do things like, if it's a new form factor, for example, or like for my 7-inch tablet, I want different types of graphics than my other side. And there you can see, the same game, basically, Basically, you can see the same game, but with the same apple here. Instead of the apple, there's a FIFA ball and a background ball. So it's my FIFA theme or a football theme based on the same aspect itself. So right now, I'm not sure why network connection is sort of gone. That's why it's not working. But that's cool, in a way that you're having an ability to basically download the game assets, put data in S3, and then make your game more dynamic overall for your application itself. You can use Kinesis, you can use Dynamodb right from your mobile app, again, a distributed NoSQL database or in data ingestion service. For the game, I'm storing all my clickstream logs. The entire Logcat data is going as real time in the Kinesis gateway, the Kinesis service. So I can analyze and see what errors are happening and so forth. For my DynamoDB side, I'm storing, again, my shared data. I'm building a leaderboard out of my game itself. So I want to see how many people are really reaching a particular level and who is the highest out of that. So all my shared data goes out in DynamoDB, and I can create that. So that's another way of basically focusing on that element as well. So you can use, with few lines of code, you can download the game assets and then manage that. The one last thing about this part is that this SDK is completely integrated with all the different services. And at the same time, it's modular. So you can pick the jar file or pick the files that you need only if you are using that particular service. At the same time, we are continuously updated, so updating these SDKs. So if you have the Android L version coming and you want to get the latest version of that, or you want certain more functionality, it's always updated. So you get the latest version of the SDK. Today we have SDKs for Android, iOS, and JavaScript, and then Xamarin and Unity are in developer preview. So you can take advantage of that and then start developing with these cross-platform products to leverage this cross-platform service. These are optimized for mobile for that particular workload as well. So let's kind of just summarize and I'll walk you through let's say if you're building a photo sharing application, you could you can, within just few lines of code, build a complete serverless backend and then manage that effectively. So in this case, your username and password or any login provider leverages Cognito to create this login provider. You use S3 and Dynamodb, S3 and CloudFront to deliver and store your user assets or user-generated data, whether it's audio, video, or anything. You use Lambda to basically manipulate data or your binary that's stored on S3, and it creates a very scalable way without having to worry about servers. You can store your metadata on Dynamodb and then not have to worry about scale as well because it scales for you. You leverage the mobile analytics side, which is focused on building getting you the data initially that you need to render that. As you grow your application, you need to do more data mining. You can move that into Redshift with just one line of code. And then you can use SNS to bring back and do targeted push notification. So this is just an example of, let's say you're building the next Instagram that needs lots of media editing, downloading, sharing, and all that aspects, and lots of media, and you're building your next Instagram on AWS, you would basically build something like this with just few lines of code on your app itself. So just to wrap up, my key takeaways is that today's modern mobile applications are cloud-powered, and they are all serverless, and they scale automatically. Leverage that today. Flexible, they work well better together, and they're fully integrated within the SDK, so you get started very quickly, as well as leverage that overall. So I talked about all the services. I encourage you to kind of take advantage of the complete suite of AWS Mobile Services, and then get started for free. All this are until a certain level of users that you use or certain level of usage, you won't be paying to AWS. So for every month, you're not paying to AWS overall. So you can get started quickly, get started for free, download the latest version of the SDKs, and then and then only pay for what you actually use. So this is extremely powerful and extremely cost-effective at the same time to leverage all the services together. You can get all this information on aws.amazon.com/mobile. This entire snake game is also on GitHub to walk you through this whole example of it uses all the different services in a very simple way. And definitely would love to hear your feedback. We are continuously improving, and if things are not easy or you need our help, please feel free to get back to me or anybody, all of us over here are here to help. And so my email address and my Twitter alias as well. So thank you very, very much for listening, and I hope this was helpful.